Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhara Adi Jashoda Nandana Raja Jana Ranjana Jashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Vishnupad Prans Pidviraj Kacharja Oshtatara Satashishi Madhavai Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Nantakoti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaud Bhaktavinda Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Ganga Devi Chamuna Devi Bhakti Devi Srimati Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Vrindavan Mathura Dham Ki Shri Vrindavan Mathura Dham Ki Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki Jagannath Puri Dham Ki the most beautiful lordships Shri Shri Krishna Balaram Ki Shri Shri Radha Shama Sundar Lita Vishaka Ki Shri Shri Gaunitai Bhagavan Ki Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki all glories to their summer devotees. All glories to their summer devotees. All glories to their summer devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Jai. So I'd like to thank the wonderful devotees of Shri Shri Krishna Balaram Mandir, all my senior godbrothers, Pancha Gauda Prabhu and Shruti-kirta Prabhu is here, Veda Vyas Maharaj, Navayogendra Swami, so many wonderful godbrothers are here, and I'd like to thank all the devotees for the wonderful service that's being performed in glorification of their lordships and Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, very much for your service. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak a little bit. I'm only here a short amount of time, coming here after many, many years. And basically, this class is going to be an offering of appreciation to my godbrothers and my godsisters as well, because I don't get an opportunity to see them. I want to dedicate this class to these wonderful devotees who have dedicated their lives to Lord Caitanya. So this śrī-caitanya Charitamrita is a very, very advanced Shastra. It is the postgraduate study of the Supreme Lord. And this chapter is entitled Lord Caitanya, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is very, very high advanced philosophy. I feel very humble, have an opportunity to speak. Please forgive me for any offenses I may commit in my humble attempt in glorifying Lord Caitanya and Lord Kṛṣṇa. It takes a lot for us to come to the platform where we can actually truly understand and realize this philosophy. I'm meditating now these days on this beautiful book called Kalyan-kopatru by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes the gradual process by which we can come to the level of truly appreciating these transcendental pastimes. It is not something cheap. It is very, very advanced. So there will be 3 phases to this class. The first phase, we're going to talk about the sloka itself. And then the second phase of this class, I want to glorify my God sister Daiva Shakti Mataji in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Hopefully she's here. And then the third phase, I want to glorify this sloka is so sweet, you'll see it. It's about the wonderful kirtan of Lord Caitanya. And it's such a wonderful bit of poetry. So we're going to sing it together. Instead of reciting this verse, can we bring it up? Yeah. Can we sing the verse? We'll sing it. Someone play Madanga? You'll know that this verse is very similar to another verse. Dear devotees, please meditate on the sweetness of this wonderful poetry. Krishna kirtana gāna nartana kalā pāthaḥ-jani bhrājitā boliye Krishna kirtana kalā pāthaḥ-jani again Krishna kirtana gāna nartana kalā pāthaḥ-jani bhrājitā sat-bhakta āvali haṁsa cakra madhu-pa śrī-caitanya sat-bhakta āvali haṁsa cakra madhu-pa again sat-bhakta āvali haṁsa cakra madhu-pa śrī-caitanya karṇānandi-kala-dhvanir vahatu me jihvā-maru-prāṅgaṇe jihvā-maru-prāṅgaṇe karṇānandi-kala-dhvanir vahatu me jihvā-maru-prāṅgaṇe jihvā-maru-prāṅgaṇe śrī-caitanya dayā-nidhe tava lasal-līlā-sudhā-svardhunī śrī-caitanya dayā-nidhe tava Śrī-caitanya dayā-nidhe tava lasal-līlā-sudhā-svardhunī Kṛṣṇa kirtana gāna nartana kalā pāthaḥ-jani bhrājitā jaya-nidhe jaya-nidhe jai Sachinandana Gaura Hare Jai Sachinandana Gaura Hare Jai Jai śrī-caitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhaktavinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So the word for word of this beautiful verse, ecstatic. Of course, Krishna, the holy name of Lord Kṛṣṇa. Utkīrtana, loud chanting. Gāna, singing. Nartana, dancing. Kalā, of the other fine arts. Pāthaḥ-jani, with lotuses. Bhrājitā, beautified. Sat-bhakta, of pure devotees. Āvali, rose. Haṁsa, of swans. Cakra, cakravāka birds. Madhu-pa, the bumblebees. Śrīni, like swans. Vahatu, of pleasure. Ashpadam, the abode. Karṇānandi, gladdening the ears. Kalā, melodious. Dhvani, sound. Vahatu, let it flow. Me, mine. Jwala, of the tongue. Muru, desert light. Prāṅgaṇe, in the courtyard. Śrī-caitanya dayā-nidhe, of Lord Caitanya's ocean of mercy. Tava, of you. Lasat, shining. Līlā-sudhā, the nectar of the pastimes. Svardhunī, the Ganges. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada. O my merciful Lord Caitanya, may the nectarine Ganges water of your transcendental activities flow on the surface of my desert-like tongue. Beautifying these waters are the lotus flowers of singing, dancing, and loud chanting of Krishna's holy name, which are the pleasure abodes of unalloyed devotees. These devotees are compared to swans, ducks, and bees. The rivers flowing produces a melodious sound that gladdens their ears. Wonderful. Everyone, let's repeat this one. Oh, my merciful Lord Caitanya. Oh, my merciful Lord Caitanya. May the nectarine Ganges water of your transcendental activities flow on the surface of my desert-like tongue. Beautifying these waters are the lotus flowers of singing. Dancing and loud chanting of Krishna's holy name, which are the pleasure abodes of unalloyed devotees. These devotees are compared to swans, ducks, and bees. The rivers flowing produces a melodious sound that gladdens their ears. Karṇa-ānandi. Beautiful, huh? Purport. Our tongues always engage. Please listen very carefully to this first sentence. It's so true. Our tongues always engage in vibrating useless sounds that do not help us realize transcendental peace. The tongue is compared to a desert because a desert needs a constant supply of refreshing water to make it fertile and fruitful. Water is the substance most needed in the desert. The transcend pleasure derived from mundane topics of art, culture, politics, sociology, dry philosophy, poetry, and so on, is compared to a mere drop of water. Because although such topics have a qualitative feature of transcendental pleasure, they are saturated with the modes of material nature. Therefore, neither collectively nor individually can they satisfy the vast requirements of the desert-like tongue, despite crying in the various conferences. Therefore, the desert-like tongue continues to be parched. For this reason, people from all parts of the world must call for the devotees of Lord Śrī-caitanya Mahaprabhu, who are compared to swans swimming around the beautiful lotus feet of Śrī-caitanya Mahaprabhu, or bees humming around his lotus feet in transcendental pleasure, searching for honey. The dryness of material happiness cannot be moistened by so-called philosophers who cry for Brahman, liberation, and similar dry, speculative objects. The urge of the sound proper is different. The soul can be solaced only by the mercy of Lord Śrī-caitanya Mahaprabhu and his many bona fide devotees who never leave the lotus feet of the Lord to become imitation Mahaprabhus, but all cling to his lotus feet like bees and never leave a bee-soaked lotus flower. Lord Caitanya's movement of Krishna consciousness is full of dancing and singing about the pastimes of Lord Kṛṣṇa. It is compared herein to the pure waters of the Ganges, which are full of lotus flowers. The enjoyers of these lotus flowers are the pure devotees, who are like bees and swans. They chant like the flowing of the Ganges, the river in the celestial kingdom. The author describes such sweetly flowing waves to cover his tongue. He humbly compares himself to materialistic persons who always engage in dry talk from which they derive no satisfaction. if they were to use their dry tongues to chant the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, as exemplified by Lord Caitanya, they would taste sweet nectar and enjoy life. Ecstatic, wonderful. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gnanandjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Dena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vicharine Nirvishis Sunivari Pasachari Satan Vancha Kopa Tirubhascha Kripa Sindhubhe Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So the devotees of the Lord are master poets, bottom line. Krishna Kavi Raj, not just any ordinary poet, but Kavi Raj, the kings of poetry. And before getting into the philosophy of Krishna consciousness in this particular chapter, Kavi Raj Krishna Das has composed such a sweet, sweet poetry glorifying the chanting of the holy names of the Lord and this sweet process of Sankirtan. So we have to realize that Krishna consciousness isn't some dry armchair speculation, right? It begins from the highest place with beautiful transcendental sound. Krishna is playing on his flute, right? Shriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kopa Taravu Druma Bhumi Chintamani Ganamayi Toyam. It's always the pastimes of bliss and chanting and dancing and ecstasy. That is our life, not this mundane struggle for existence that Prabhu was reminding me of, that I'm getting ready to go back to. The struggle for existence. We're not meant for that. We're meant to be singing and dancing and serving Lord Kṛṣṇa. So Kaviraj is describing this so nicely in this verse. And it begins from Lord Brahma. I remember when I was in Bombay at that time, and here it talks about kalā, which is the arts, right? Prabhupada was so brilliant that he created this auditorium in Bombay where all of these big musicians and artists, they come and we engage them in glorifying Krishna, not just the mundane Hollywood songs. So this big musician, I'm not going to say his name, but he used to come every day to the temple just to hear the Govindam prayers of Jamuna Mataji singing. And one time I met him in a temple room, he was just stunned listening to Govinda prayer. And he said, you know what, Prabhuji, this is the most elevated perfection of music. Jamuna Mataji ki, Rama Samhita ki. Excellent, beautiful poetry, described in exquisite language. That is our legacy, coming from Lord Brahma. Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So, devotees are filled with these beautiful poetic glorifications of the Lord. And our Srila Prabhupada was no less. Prabhupada was so poetic. Every purport, how sweet this purport is just strung together. So wonderful, Prabhupada is just describing the dryness of this material world. As Govinda Das is singing, Kamala Dala Jivana Talama. Govinda Das is describing this dryness of the material world in his Bhajode Mana, Shinandanandana Abhaya Charanadavinda. So So our movement is a very, very poetic movement. And that is the mercy of Lord Caitanya. Because in Kali Yuga, people for the most part are mudhas. They are not prepared for very high philosophy. So Lord Caitanya has come in this mood of chanting and dancing Hare Krishna. So let us just appreciate the wonderful, wonderful nectar that is in these transcendental books. The poetry, the divine inspiration that gives us not only philosophy, it's not just dry philosophy, but it's philosophy spoon-fed like honey, right? I like to read one song from Sharanagati, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, some beautiful poetry that's filled with philosophy, but it's spoon-fed very nicely. This song is called Bhuliya Tumhare. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is talking about how we come in this material world and we forget Lord Kṛṣṇa. But he is singing it so sweetly. Bhuliya Tumhare, samsare asiya, pe nata nana vrata. Oh Lord, forgetting you and coming to this material world, I have experienced a host of pains and sorrows. Now I approach your lotus feet and submit my tale of woe. While I was bound up tightly in the unbearable confines of my mother's womb, O Lord, you once revealed yourself before me. Appearing only briefly, you then abandoned this poor servant of yours. At that moment I thought, after my birth this time, I will surely worship you with undivided attention. But alas, after taking birth, I fell into the entangling network of worldly illusions. Thus I possess not even a drop of true knowledge. As a dear son fondled in the laps of attentive relatives, I passed my time smiling and laughing. The affection of my father and mother helped me to forget you still more. And I began to think that this material world is a very nice place. Day by day, I gradually grew into the young boy and began playing with other boys. Soon my powers of understanding emerged, so I diligently read and studied my school lessons every day. Proud of my accomplished education, I later traveled from place to place and earned much wealth. Thus maintaining my family with undivided attention, I forgot you, O Lord Hari. I forgot you. Bhuliya Tumhare. Now in old age, and we are all realizing that, now in old age, this Bhakti Vinod very sadly weeps as death approaches. I failed to worship you, O Lord, and instead passed my days in vain. What will be my fate now? Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. So I want to segue into my next subject, which is Daivi Shakti Mataji. Daivi Shakti Mataji ki! So I forgot the Lord as well. Since you guys don't know me, I'll give you a little bit of background. I'm from Brooklyn, New York City. And I was fortunate enough to be born when Prabhupada was preaching right on the other side of the river in Manhattan. But I forgot the Lord. I was deeply in my childhood pastimes, thinking that this material world was a good place. Then one dark Sunday came. Very gloomy, dark Sunday came. And I woke up to find that my best friend, his father had become distraught because he had lost his job and he had just brought a brownstone, which right down the street in those days was a very big accomplishment. So he brought this brownstone, but then he got fired from his job. And he was very distraught. So what did he do? He came home, he got a gun, he shot my best friend, he shot his wife, he shot his young little baby, and then he took the gun to himself and he shot himself. These things are somewhat common, these suicides, these frustrated activities. In those days, that was something, this gun violence was something that was somewhat new. So I was very young. I was only about 10, 12 years old, and I was very, very distraught when I found out that Sunday, that gloomy Sunday, that my friend's father had slaughtered his whole family. My whole world came to a standstill, and I was totally bewildered. What type of world is this? So I cried like anything, and I tried to take rest at night, but I refused. Rest didn't come. So I went out on my stoop, and in Brooklyn you have these brownstones with stairs, and so I went out on a stoop and I prayed to the Lord. At that time I was brought up in a Christian family. So of course I thought of Jesus. And I said, Jesus, what kind of horrible world have you brought me in? And I said that I am not going to leave this stoop until you give me some answer. I'm not. I had this real firm, this determination came to me that I need answers right now. So 1 hour went, another hour, and I'm just in totally anxiety, just totally bewildered. Cold, out there on the stoop, none of my family, they must have thought I was crazy. I'm standing out on the stoop. So finally, it came to 4 o'clock in the morning, and I got this very tremendous sensation of warmth that came around my body. And this voice came from me. It was not outside, it was not inside, it was very, very transcendental. And the voice said, my dear son, you have a great thirst for knowledge. Your questions of the miseries of this material world is very, very laudable. It is very, very warranted as a human being. And this voice said, in this life, you will be blessed with transcendental knowledge. Whatever you want to learn, right? And whatever door of knowledge you knock on, it will be open. And whatever you want to know will be revealed to you. Now go to sleep. So I went inside and I took rest, and all of a sudden I had these visions of these beautiful, colorful pictures. Beautiful, colorful pictures of this beautiful person. I didn't know it was beautiful, colorful pictures. I'll give you a hint. Beautiful, colorful, transcendental pictures appeared in my dream. And occasionally, when I became distressed, these dreams would come, but I didn't know what they were. So, fast forward. My life completely transformed. I became a vegetarian, I was fasting, I moved from Bedford-Stuyvesant to Grand Army Plaza where the big library was. I tore up every last book searching for that knowledge that was told that I would receive. I studied Buddhism, I studied Islam, I studied Christianity, I studied everything, Taoism. I finally came to Paramahansa Yogananda, which a lot of us have somehow or another gravitated to. And that was my introduction to India. Paramahansa Yogananda, I loved him. You know, his talks and the way he explained was the first time I really kind of got spiritual life a little bit. So my cousins and I built this shack in New Jersey for us to meditate. And we kind of made up our own meditation. So we were there fasting and meditating and philosophizing. And then one night, my older brother, came in the shack with a bright look on his face. His face was shining. I said, wow, what happened to this guy? His face was shining. And in his hand was Bhagavad Gita as it is. Srila Prabhupada, Bhagavad Gita as it is, ki! And he was blissful. I said, what happened to you, man? He said, I was in the Grand Army Plaza, and this little lady was walking around distributing these books, and I was trying to rush to get on the train, but she grabbed me, and I didn't want to take this book, but she convinced me. Devi Shakti Mataji ki! She grabbed me and she convinced me to take this book. And somehow or another, I felt that I should take this book. It was good for me. So he passed this book to me. And it was the original Macmillan Bhagavad Gita. And when I saw this book, I was overwhelmed with spiritual emotions. Because these were the pictures that I had seen for so many years in my dreams. These are not ordinary books. These are transcendental books. Every page, every painting is transcendental. We shouldn't change Prabhupada's books. This book is divine. So my brother would not part with the book. So I waited. And when I got this book, I read this book every page. I didn't sleep, I didn't eat. I read this book from cover to cover. This is divine, transcendental knowledge. Krishna is revealing to us. Bhagavad Gita as it is, ki jai. Thanks to all of the devotees that are engaged in Prabhupada's marathon. We did it also for many years. Devi Shakti Mataji was... So anyhow, next story. I read Bhagavad Gita, and I say, my brother wouldn't part with it, so I say, I have to have this Bhagavad Gita. And, I read it very thoroughly, studied it very, very thoroughly. The qualities of a devotee, how devotees are, very deeply. But then, how to find devotees, right? How to find devotees. So, my brother said that he met this Mataji in the Grand Army Plaza. So I said, let me go to Grand, Central Station in 42nd Street. Maybe I'll get lucky. So I go to 42nd Street, and there's Devi Shakti Mataji, little lady, with this big smile on her face, approaching these big, giant business people, and her, just grabbing them and convincing them to take books. And I was like, who is this lady? And I said, before I approach her, let me look at her and see what she's doing. So I didn't approach her right away. I stood in the background looking at her. And it was not a good day for her. She was getting rejected by a lot of these people because, it's a very fast pace in Grand Central. It's very fast, it's very passionate. And she was so little, and I said, man, she has a lot of nerves, this lady out here surrounded by all these big materialists. I was amazed. And she never gave up that smile. She had this smile. She was always smiling, even though they were rejecting her. So anyway, I said, you know what? I said, this lady has suffered enough. Let me go there and make her happy. So I went over there, and I just purchased everything she had. Gave her every last penny in my pocket. I gave it to her, and whatever books she had, I took those books. And I would not be here today if it wasn't for that exchange that I had with Devi Shakti Mataji. Devi Shakti Mataji ki! Many years I've been told this story. This is the first time I'm telling this story publicly, and I wanted to do it here in Vrindavan and thank Mataji. You know, she is so wonderful. She is so wonderful. Not only did she save me, but she saved the devotee also that saved me. Devamrita, right? Devamrita, now he's a sannyasi. She also saved him. She dragged him out of the material world. He told me, I didn't even know that. Later she told me that. He told me that. I used to come to the temple on Henry Street, right? That was such a transcendental temple. And I was hesitant to somewhat, I hadn't finished high school. And Devamrita used to drag me to the temple. He would call me, if he didn't see me at the temple, he would call me on the phone and drag me to the temple. You know, the devotees are so kind. God of Bhakta ki! We would not be here if it wasn't for the mercy of the devotees. Prabhupada gave us that mercy, but don't forget that that mercy is flowing through all of us. You know, it's flowing through all of us. You know, as we spread Krishna consciousness, as we give these transcendental books, it's a flow of nectar that is being distributed. So I want to thank all those devotees that facilitated me being here from Brooklyn, New York. Can you imagine that? Here at the lotus feet of Shri Shri Radha Shama Sundar. This is a divine process, a divine movement, transcendental movement of singing and dancing. So we have to be appreciative to those devotees that came before us, the sacrifice that they made. You may see Mataji wandering around here. Thank her. I know how much she distributed books and how many lives she changed by her determination. And it's not like sitting here and people coming happy and all the Indians, they already know Krishna and they might need a little preaching to. It is not like that in the West, where people spit at you, they yell at you, why don't you get a job? The cops are constantly harassing you. So let us appreciate these gifts that the devotees had gave us. This class goes to 9. So I'm going to move on to that, from that subject. And once again, all thanks to Mataji for saving me from this material world and by delivering this transcendental Bhagavad Gita. This is also a beautiful song. It's poetry sung by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's very, very transcendental. Never forget, you know, Prabhupada labored like anything to produce these beautiful books. So I'd like to end my class by glorifying the kirtan of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, because this verse is all about the singing and the dancing of kirtan. You know, I was attracted, of course, a little bit by prasadam, philosophy, but I was really also attracted by the kirtans. So a lot of you don't know the history of kirtan and this wonderful International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about the wonderful kirtanias that I were able to come in contact and the way they chanted, and the poetry and the sweetness of their chanting. I like to start with Bhadraj. When I went to the New York temple, Bhadraj used to play the harmony and just sweetly chant. I used to say, who is this person? Little Bala. And he'd go in the temple by himself and just chant. You know, so sweet. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So sweet with the harmonium. Bhadraj Prabhu ki jai. And then there was a transcendental combination. There was Jai Sachidnandan and Agni Dev. These two devotees, I was amazed by them. they used to, one would play the madanga and other one would play, and they would do this gora artik. No one does it like those devotees did it in those days. Wonderful, wonderful kirtan. I don't know where Jai Satchidananda came from. What style he had in kirtan. He just enthused me so much. Vedavyas Maharaj, he played the tabla on one tape called Gandharva Loka when Jai Satchidananda is singing. Wonderful Bengali. You would think he was a Bengali. And by Prabhupada's mercy, when I met him, he was only in the movement for like a year or two. He sung, he spoke Bengali, he sung bhajans. It was incredible. Then Agni-dev. Everyone has heard of Lata Mangeshwar here, right? Who hasn't heard of Lata Mangeshwar? Everyone has. The Nightingale of India. Let me tell you a story about her. So Agni-dev Prabhu was the temple president in San Diego. And my godbrother, Jagat Purush, and we had the Bhakti Kalakshetra in Bombay where we preached to a lot of the artists and got them to come to the temple. And Hemalini was one of them, Raj Kapoor, all of these artists. So he was taking Lata Mangeshwari to the temple in San Diego, right? And Agni-dev was chanting kirtan. And Lata Mangeshwari said, "Who is this person singing?" Can you imagine that? Lata Mangeshwari, one of the best singers of all time in India. When she heard Agni-dev chanting Hare Krishna, she was in ecstasy. She said, this person is so gifted in chanting the holy names. Can you imagine that? Lata Mangeshwari. So Agni-dev Prabhu. And then Achyutananda. Achyutananda told me that, I asked him, how did you come to write the songbook? So this original songbook that we have of Vaishnava songs was written by Achyutananda, right? Achyutananda is such a wonderful, wonderful kirtaniya. I have so much gratitude for him. I grew up listening to his kirtans. You know, we would distribute books, and we didn't get a chance to do kirtan in the early days too much because we were doing book distribution. I used to sit in the back of the van when we were traveling from one city to another and put on my headphones and listen to Achyutananda. Wonderful, wonderful devotee who came here, sacrificed so much. And he told me, he said, you know what, I heard all of these kind of Western kind of sounding kirtans coming out of the West, so I thought I should do a classical Bengali style kirtan and translate the Acharya's songbooks. So there was Achyutananda Prabhu. Such a classic, wonderful, so many wonderful kirtans he gave us. Anandamoy kirtan. And then, of course, there was one tape that also included Dinanath Prabhu, my godbrother Dinanath Prabhu. So there was one tape called Delhi Bhajans, or Delhi Kirtan. So there was Achyutananda singing, there was Dinanath, and there was Yamuna Maharaj, Yamuna Mataji. So we were doing traveling Sankirtan, and we came to Chicago one time. I'll never forget this. And all of the brahmacharis were hovering around this tape recorder, and I was saying, what's going on? They said, you didn't hear this, Prabhu? And it was a tape with Dinanath with that beat, boom, 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 and it was like, it was a different kind of tape for us to hear that type of madanga playing. I mean, that's a classic tape. I'm sure you've heard it. It's called Delhi Pandal Kirtan. So Dinanath, great inspiration in kirtan. He was here in the beginning days as well, leading kirtans and with Prabhupada doing the parikrama. And then, of course, I cannot not mention Vishnujan Maharaj. Vishnujan Maharaj ki! Vishnujan Swami was such a wonderful, wonderful devotee, so dedicated to chanting. I had the great pleasure traveling around on the Radha Dharma Sankirtan party, and just observing Vishnujan Swami chant for hours and hours and hours. He would tape up his fingers with black tape and just endlessly beat on the drum and chant, and it was almost like he never slept. It's like he was always chanting. I remember we would be in the ashram and we would go to sleep and he would be chanting in the corner with his harmonium, and we would be pooped and we would go to sleep and we would wake up and Vishnujan was still chanting on his harmonium, waking us up. Such a wonderful, wonderful kirtanita and a wonderful devotee. Along with Vishnujan, there was my dear godbrother Riksharaj, who was doing book distribution, and another devotee called Vishnu Datta, who was the most expert madanga player. To this day, I have not seen anyone who plays a madanga like Vishnu Datta. Wonderful, wonderful madanga player. So Riksharaj and him did book distribution, and they associated with Vishnujan Maharaj, and then they also began making tapes and singing. I remember one time, it was 1976, and Riksharaj led the Guru Puja. I'll never forget that Guru Puja, right here in this temple room. It was so wonderful. At that time, that Sanskrit scholar, we were singing that Sanskrit, I think it was 8 verses, glorifying Prabhupada. We would sing those 8 verses, and then we would do Guru Puja. And I can still see, Riksharaj, little Riksharaj there, leading a Guru Puja for Srila Prabhupada. So, all glories to these transcendental devotees. And then when I came here, there was Bhajan Das and Shrikant in Bombay, who were wonderful, wonderful kirtan leaders. So much inspiration in their kirtan. And then finally, I like to glorify my good godbrother, Sripad Indra Das. Many of you may not know, we joined in the same temple. I didn't join in New York. I went to Washington to join. And in Washington, D.C., Indra Das was there. Indra was a book distributor. In those days, Indra was not a chanter. He was a book distributor. Try to understand. A lot of us, by the mercy of Prabhupada, by surrendering and doing one service, somehow or another, we were inspired to take on other services at a very high level. Indra was like that. Indra was a solid books distributor. Matter of fact, we had competition. We had these different groups, and during the Christmas marathon, we would take names of different, my group was called the Parantapas, and Indra's group was called the Mahabahus. So we would go out and we would compete on who could distribute more books. And Indra, believe it or not, Indra would dress up as a Santa Claus. And he would go in the subways when he moved to New York, and he would distribute books in the Santa Claus uniform in the subways in New York. Indra Prabhu ki jai. And then gradually, he produced this beautiful, he transformed a truck into a transcendental temple, right? And he used to travel in New York City in this van. And then it took him like half an hour, 45 minutes to put this van together. He would pull right on the street, and anywhere in New York, he would just pop up, open it. He had his deities, he had his speakers, and then he would just start chanting. So that was the beginning of Indra Prabhu's 24-hour kirtan. And you all know the history. Then he came here and he began the 24-hour kirtan. So we have a wonderful, wonderful tradition of poets and kirtaniyas. I wanted to spend some time and just meditate on those devotees and meditate on their pastimes, and then heartfeltly thank them for their devotion to Lord Caitanya's beautiful movement. We are all part of a wonderful, sweet, transcendental, poetic movement. let us, appreciate these devotees, absorb this beautiful mellow of kirtan that's coming from Lord Caitanya, and push on this movement more and more, as we're doing with the book distribution and the kirtan that's going on in the temple. Hare Krishna. So I'll end there. Any questions, comments? Yes, Buddha.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. It actually sparked a...
Wait for my please. Take a second.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. You've actually had a lot of spark. There's a lot of gratitude that we feel towards the parampara and the entire knowledge and the artistic skills that has been passed down to us. What would you say to a person, struggling devotee, who has no artistic skills whatsoever, no poetic skills, no music skills, nothing? How do we create our gratitude and ensure we're able to carry on these amazing parampara further?
These skills are not our skills. We're all like puppets, We're all like puppets. Indra couldn't sing a tiny bit. I'm telling you, quite frankly, Indra was not a kirtan leader. He was not a leader when I met him in Washington, D.C. He couldn't sing a lick. I'm going to be very frank with you. All right? And I know Indra from the beginning. All right? So we are instruments of the Supreme Lord Kṛṣṇa. Krishna Das Karayat, what is that verse? Mukam karati vacha lam pangum layakaya tekadim yat kripa tamaham vande śrī-guru dinatārana. So, the lame can walk, the blind can see by the mercy of the spiritual master, by the mercy of Lord Caitanya. We have many, many pastimes of lame, ignorant, foolish people who, just by the mercy of Lord Caitanya, they became ecstatic in their devotional service. Hoituki patatiyata, right? Devotional service, there is no limitations. If you are sincere, right, Krishna can make a blind person see, and he can make a lame person walk. So there's no excuses, right? I have no this, I have no that. Prabhupada left the deities in Australia and just prayed, my dear Lord, I'm leaving you with these crazy people, right? I have no idea what the result's going to be. And the Dhammi Buddhi Yogam Tam Ninamo Mukti. Prabhupada came back, and somehow or another, by Krishna in their heart, he inspired them, right, to become such wonderful pujaris, right? This temple is a temple of inspiration. It's inspiration, Prabhu. It's Krishna doing this, It's Krishna coming in the hearts. Anyone here that is a pujari will understand what I'm saying. I was a pujari. And every day, Krishna tells you how to dress him nicely. There's no, when you go, just like going to Thai, when you go on the altar, there's no book that's telling you the style that you dress going to Thai today. It's inspiration from the heart. Krishna consciousness is inspiration from the heart. Whatever service you do, if you are thankful to Krishna, Krishna will inspire you to do it better. Be it cleaning, be it cooking. When you are connected with Krishna, everything becomes super excellent. Because Krishna is super. Krishna is super. Everything Krishna does is super. When I came into the Brooklyn temple for the first time and I saw Radha Govinda, right? And you have to understand, I'm from a neighborhood where people take pride in wearing fancy hats and dressing nicely and styling. When I walked in the temple and I saw Govinda with his turban and his dhoti tied, and I was like, who is this person? The peacock feather, garland, playing a flute. Who's more artistic than Krishna, our Supreme Father? Nobody. Nobody. Krishna is the most artistic, the most sweet, the most beautiful, everything. And when we connect with Krishna, it rubs off on us. So there's no excuses. I'm not a singer, I'm not a cleaner, I'm not a this, I'm not a that. It's true, we're nobodies. We're zeros when we're disconnected from Krishna. But when we connect ourselves to Krishna, we become completely accessible to Krishna's mercy. There's no limitations. Only limitations is our own foolishness. Anything else? Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you for your class, Prabhu. You was glorifying all the devotees that in your life make a change. So why is so important to glorify the devotees? What is the importance in the jiva, for the soul to glorify the devotees? What is that importance?
Bhaktivinoda Thakur, you have to read the beautiful songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Narottam Das Thakur, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. At the end of every chapter, Rupa Raghunatha Pade, Hoiveyas, he's glorifying Rupa Raghunatha. This is our way. We are nothing without the previous devotees that have sacrificed for us. We are nothing, Prabhu. Realize it. I lived in a hell. But the devotees established this beautiful building and transformed. This Henry Street temple was just an ordinary house. I was talking to the one devotee that was at that temple. That house was transformed into the spiritual world. You know, you were with Prabhupada, you walked with Prabhupada there, you were serving Prabhupada. That place was so transcendental. Why? Not because of the matter that made up that building, because of the devotion that those devotees had. So much bhakti those devotees had. Cleaning that temple, cooking. When you went into that temple, the smell of the ghee and the incense and the perfumes, it was transcendental. I was blown away when I first went to that temple. That didn't happen on its own. It was the devotees that did that. Our impersonal way of taking everything for granted is nonsense. Devotees are dressing, the deities, the devotees are cleaning, all of this was done. We're a person. Why not appreciate the hard work of everyone? Appreciate it, you know? Appreciate it. These pictures in this book, I mean, they may be somewhat rude, and you may think that, oh, let me improve these pictures, right? There's nothing to improve with these pictures. These pictures, when I saw the personality of Godhead in this form, this is divine. And this picture didn't just manifest on this paper. These devotees took their time and they painted these pictures. They got inspiration. One devotee was laughing the other day, and he was telling me, I'm not going to mention any names, but he was telling me when Radharani came to Prabhupada, she didn't know how to draw, nothing practically speaking. He was talking about devotees that may not be able to sing. Look at Radharani's pictures now. Look at the beautiful detail and the emotion, the colors. That's bhakti, that's devotion, that's inspiration from Krishna. How can we not thank these devotees who have manifested this beautiful windows into the spiritual world? I was blown away by the picture of Keshava that Radharani, she drew. When you went into the Henry Street temple, in the temple room, in the middle of the temple room, there's the original picture of Keshava. And looking down at you, beautiful, beautiful lotus eyes in a Garbhodak ocean with 4 hands, with Sheshnag. Radharani painted that picture. It's unbelievably beautiful. That picture transforms your consciousness looking at that picture of Keshav. How can we not appreciate these devotees? It should be the question. How can we not appreciate them? So by appreciating the devotees, we're appreciating what sacrifice Srila Prabhupada made for us, and it goes in the disciple succession. Sacrifice Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati made his whole life by being celibate and by dedicating his life to Krishna consciousness. One acharya after another. It's all about a loving flow of sacrifice. So by appreciating the parampara and all these wonderful devotees, the poetry that's in these books, then we get Krishna's blessings, plain and simple. Is that all right?
How do you define blown away?
Let me put it in Bengali then. Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Kalyana Kopatru, he describes the 3 phases of the devotional service. First phase is Upadesh. He gives us the instructions that we're not this body and that we are in so much illusion. When we follow that Upadesh, we come to the platform of spiritual realization. That's Upalabdhi. We become realized. We realize that this mature world is a horrible place and that we have limited time here, so we need to get our acts together before it's too late. That's Upalabdhi. Spiritual realizations that we're wasting our time in this mature world. Like Kaviraj is saying, we're talking pajopa, our dry tongue is just getting us in trouble. It's number 2. Then number 3 is being blown away. That's called Ushwasha in Bengali, right? Overwhelmed with spiritual emotions. That song that we sing in the morning, Viva Varishesha, Aloka Pravesha, that is called Ushwash Kirtan. That is not an ordinary kirtan. That is a very divine kirtan. Ushwash Kirtan, Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes that. The first Ushwash Kirtan is glorifying Lord Caitanya's name. Kali kakur kadan jadika Kali yuga pavana Kali bayanasana Sri Sachinandana Gauhe. We're supposed to sing that song first and then sing Vivavadi Shesha, because that song is all the names of Lord Caitanya. Gadadhara prana, like that. So that's Ushwasha Kirtan. That means after understanding the instructions given by the acharyas, upadeshas, we get spiritual realization. And as a result of that devotion, that spiritual realization, we become overwhelmed with spiritual emotions. That's being blown away. Ushwash, it rises up and we become overwhelmed with spiritual realization. And what is that spiritual realization? Here in Vrindavan, right? Krishna is performing so many wonderful pastimes. He's Nrsimha Vamana, Sri Madhu-sudana. He kills Madhu and Kaitava. But at the same time, he's Brajendanandan. He's taken a humble role as the son of Braj. He's protecting the residents of Vrindavan. But at the same time, he's Jogendra Vandana, greatest of all mystics. So this wonderful opportunity that we have to come in contact with Krishna is not ordinary. But we have to take it step by step. And if we take it step by step, then one day we'll get blown away.
I'm blown away by your class.
That is.
Srila Prabhupada ki Shashtivara ki.
May you come back from the house plan soon.